Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Joe Rimmer, joined today by Ian Doyle. How are we, Ian?
Hello, Joseph. How are you? It's Friday afternoon.
That it is, Ian. And how are you, Paul Gost?
It's always factual, isn't he?
Yeah,
Whatever you want to say about him. I am good, gearing up for another day on the road with Doyley. Brentford tomorrow, isn't it?
It is.
10 o'clock train to West London. And
Please do not be on
we
that
go
train.
again.
Tell our listeners what it's like to travel around the country with Doyley.
Yeah, it's got its moments. It's ups, it's downs. But
Whoa. What are the downs?
I think we'll have to make this an unfamily-friendly podcast. But are we now, Doyley? 6 seasons in.
Yeah, and we've only slept together once.
Well,
that was in Naples.
That's because you keep rejecting the advances.
I mean, come on.
Well, you make a lovely couple anyway. So, yes, we're live on YouTube. We'll be accepting questions if you want to drop them in the chat. We'll be accepting thumbs up. We'll be accepting
bells being pressed.
Bells being pressed. Yeah. Subscribes. Yes. Someone did ask the other day how they get notifications for when the pod is going to go live, and I said to them, you need to press the bell. That's And if you press the bell and turn notifications on your phone, you'll get a little message to say that we are going live on YouTube. Ian, our producer, usually sets up the stream, 10 minutes before, so you get a bit of a warning. So please do that if you want to follow us live. Otherwise, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, elsewhere, please give us a like, a review, tell a friend, do all those nice things, and we will be very grateful. Ian will be very grateful, and Paul will be very grateful as well. So please do that. We're also very grateful to NordVPN, who help us do what we do.
Absolutely seamless.
I don't write these. I don't write these. It's all unscripted. So to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred, and our link gives you 4 months extra on a 2-year plan. There's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. I've been saying quite often recently on pods, send me an email if you want to ask any questions or pass on any thoughts or feedback. Really do enjoy getting them. So joe.rimmer@reachplc.com. I've got a couple I want to read out today. And we'll start with them.
Okay, go on.
Just to demonstrate to our audience that we read and we come back to them. So
check
we'll
our
start
website.
with
Do we
one
read? I don't know.
from Nathan, who has sent me a really nice email. He's a long-time listener. Goes back to the Andy Kelly days.
Wow,
which is nice.
That's going back a long
that's like
time.
day
That's
one,
Yeah.
It was him then me presenting it.
You will have to tell Andy when you see him. He's doing well. He's at Liverpool. He said, don't want my first message to be doom and gloom. So we'll start by saying what a fantastic job Slot has done so far during his tenure. There's lots of positive signs. I'm really impressed by the way he handles himself in press conferences and other interviews. However, after seeing the Zubimendi news today, I'm guessing he sent this, I think, on Wednesday when we saw that it looks like Zubimendi's going to go to Arsenal. I felt I had to write in. The Richard Hughes reign is concerning, and I'm worried that we are really going to feel the impact after this season. I completely appreciate the complexities of the 3 contracts and know it's difficult to identify players who could improve this Liverpool team, but the fact that Arsenal have seemingly got Zubimendi over the line is tough to take. It seems we are losing out on many players who would be brilliant for the club. He then lists a number of players over the last few seasons Liverpool have been linked with or interested in, such as Yoro, Caicedo, Rice, Calafiori, and now Zubimendi. And I know there are different reasons to why we didn't sign each one that didn't work out, but clearly something is going wrong here. The great news, we're still ahead of Arsenal and others on the pitch, but anyone who follows this club can see that we are not being bold enough in the transfer market to cement our position going forward. And here comes his question. What's your honest assessment of what's happening behind the scenes at Liverpool? And in your opinion, do you think it's been wise for Richard Hughes to hold the press conference when he started and not speak publicly since? I feel he would have been better placed to work fully behind the scenes or be more vocal if he was only going to speak once. Thanks again, Nathan. I think it's a question that a lot of people will be asking right now with Liverpool. They are one of the quieter clubs in the transfer market. Go on, Ghosty, I'll let you start with
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point in terms of Richard Hughes, a bit of a halfway house, starting off as the sort of front and centre with Slot, wasn't he, answering questions, and then since then he's been silent and no one's really seen him. I bumped into him at one of the Youth League games in Milan, but other than that, I've not really seen him at Anfield or anywhere else, really, and I'm certainly nothing on the record. Who are the players you mentioned there?
Caicedo, Yoro, Calafiori, Zubimendi and Wright. I don't think Liverpool were ever seriously
I don't know about Rice or Calafiori. Certainly with Yoro, there was always a feeling that Real Madrid were going to come to the table. And to be honest, if you watched any Yoro last night, getting run all down the wing by Suleiman of Southampton, if that would have happened at Liverpool, you'd be questioning it. So
he's looked all right in the other couple of games.
yeah, I'm sure he's obviously got talent. And someone was speaking to me in Doyle earlier this season and was almost of the opinion that Liverpool will have to take the medicine on losing out on him. You know, someone who worked for Liverpool. But yeah, it's difficult to be overly critical because look at the squad that they've assembled and sort of what they're doing at the moment. The Premier League leaders and Champions League leaders. So you can't really say that missing out on anyone has impacted their ability to progress, certainly on the slot. So I can understand some of it. Maybe with Liverpool now with Zubimendi, they're looking at it and thinking, you know, the 51 million buyout clause that is there would be better used for other areas of the pitch, perhaps a left back in the summer. They still don't know what's going on with the contract situations. Might they need to replace a Trent? Might they need to buy a number 9? All these sorts of issues where you think, well, £51 million could go a long way for Liverpool. That's one player, isn't it? So, you know, it's about allocation of resources, I guess, and supporters won't necessarily want to hear it, but Liverpool don't have these sorts of endless funds to throw about. And I've said for a while now, I think they probably could do with improving midfield this window just because of a bit of an over-reliance on Gravenberch more than anything. It doesn't seem to fancy Endo, does he? Hasn't started him in a Premier League game, so maybe is there a sort of halfway house where you bring someone in who is a bit closer to challenging Gravenberch but is not going to start every week and as a result is not going to cost the earth? It's a difficult balancing act, but also how do you judge a sporting director? I think you just have to go on what happens. You know, it's easier to judge a manager because the results are there and the tactical decisions are there. We're not necessarily privy to what
you see it play out, don't you?
Yeah, you don't know what a sporting director does day to day, really, other than the fact that you know the success of transfers is often put on their door. So it's tough to judge. But I can sort of see the suggestion that it hasn't been hit the ground running 6 months or so for Richard Hughes. I would go with that, I think.
Ian?
In answer to the first bit of the question, given the fact that none of the other Liverpool sporting directors ever spoke at a press conference, I think it was only good for us that he actually spoke. So I don't see any problems with that, and he shouldn't be fronting it all the time, should he? Do any of the other clubs' sporting directors come out and talk a lot?
I agree with that.
Not very often, but
in Germany it's a bit more commonplace, isn't it? In Italy,
and also he's not really had much to talk about because not much has happened, as we've said. On Zubimendi, look, if the mountains of Hampstead Heath are better than Mabama, then you know there's not much Liverpool can do about that. And also Arsenal haven't got the deal over the line yet. Liverpool were way nearer to getting it done, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. You know, there's quite a lot that can still go on, as has been shown in the past. Just talking generally, I think what people seem to forget is that for sporting directors, they don't just like work. What is it, June to late August, and then the whole of January. Mm-hmm. In fact, they are doing other stuff in between. And what we don't know is how Liverpool see the squad next season. And the reason for that is because the new manager coming in has obviously been put in a position where he's had a whole season to have a look at the squad now, rather than bringing new players when he first started, because they only signed 2. One of them's not played, the other one doesn't arrive until the summer, and there's no guarantee he's going to be starting anyway. Mamadashvili, the goalkeeper, in case you'd forgotten, because that does tend to be getting forgotten quite a fair bit. Yeah, they've committed £30 million, which is a lot of money if he's going to be a reserve goalkeeper. So wait and see how that pans out. So yeah, at the end of this season, or certainly probably now actually, you would imagine Slot sat down and gone, right, I want to do this. Whether it's partly in this transfer window for certain position, for one position possibly, but the rest of them is going to have to be this. So they could be working on deals, not just getting players in. For example, they're probably going to need a left back. They might need a centre back. They might need a forward. They might need a midfielder. That's every position in the squad, isn't it? In the team. So it's also about moving players on as well. Mm-hmm. So they may even be looking at, okay, which players want to stay? Does Luis Diaz want to stay? Mm-hmm. Does Darwin Núñez want to stay? Is Costa Simicas going? I'm just making this up off the top of my head, but my point is we don't know because we don't get told that, and nor should we really. But you will get an idea a bit nearer the end of the season about how Slot sees certain players. Look at Harvey Elliott, he's hardly played this season. I mean, I know he was injured for a large part of it, but since he's come back, he's not played a lot of minutes compared to the previous season. Does Slot think, maybe he's not what I want, like we've mentioned before, Ghosty mentioned with Endo. He's clearly not somebody who while he respects him certainly as a player, and I think we've spoken about him enough times to know that he's, he never complains when he comes on for 3 minutes at the end, But I'm pretty sure he'd prefer to be playing the other 87 minutes as well, certainly at his stage of his career, or is he now nearly 32? So, I do think that's something that Liverpool will be doing at the moment. They will be looking at, right, what can we do in the longer term? So for a sporting director, how do you judge them? You can't judge them over one transfer window, two transfer windows. It's over like 4 or 5, 6, 7. We saw that with Michael Edwards. It was hard to judge what Julian Ward did as the sporting director. It's hard to judge what Schmadtke did, although now you look at his signs and go, McAllister and in fact all the midfielders, isn't it? McAllister, Szoboszlai, Endo, Graham. But then how many of them went down to him though?
The legwork for McAllister was Julian Ward, and the team at the time.
Well, exactly. It comes under, who does that come under? So
Szoboszlai was almost just we're paying the release clause.
Who made that decision? Was it the manager or the sporting director? It wasn't Schmadtke,
because I think he said previously that he was shocked by how much it was and he couldn't quite believe it.
So that tells you that
certainly Klopp.
Even when they sign players, it doesn't necessarily come down to sporting director, although it will be his job to facilitate the deal and make sure that it goes through. So the decisions aren't necessarily down to him. I know that Slot's the head coach of Liverpool and not the manager, but I think that's possibly just to take the pressure off him slightly when it comes to transfers. I think Richard Hughes is quite happy to take that on, as we've seen, because Slot is getting no kind of criticism, nor should he, for any transfer dealings, because we know that he obviously was happy with Zubimendi coming in. He'd obviously greenlit that. And I'm sure he'd quite happily greenlight a transfer or two this month, but whether that's possible or not, I don't know, because you look at all the other teams, and Tottenham signed the goalkeeper, didn't they? Aston Villa signed the lad from Dortmund, and other than that,
have they signed them?
Yeah, signed him. Yeah, they've signed him, Daniel. And other than that, I think Ipswich got in the player from Villa.
Yeah,
Philip Philogin.
Yeah.
And that's been about it. But we know quite well that for January transfer windows, what tends to happen, you either do a transfer right at the start of it, or they'll get done at the end of it. So we're still waiting for the main things to happen there, because teams don't want to commit to spending money if they can at the last minute they go. In the next 2 weeks, let's just say for Arsenal's for example, they lose 2 right backs. Then they go, oh, we need a right back. But they go, we've already signed somebody else. We've wasted our money on this. So I think teams are just going to wait to the last minute. But in terms of your initial point, it's far too early to judge Richard Hughes. The problem he's got is, as Gorsty said the other day, I think it was on Twitter, the optics don't look so great at the moment, because
did I say that today?
I think you did. Yeah, it sounds like something very prescient that you'd say. That the 3 things that he has to do with the current squad, he's not done with the contracts and the actual signing of players, which are the things that people like far more interested in selling players. He's only been able to do that for 1 player so far, so that's all he can go off at the moment.
We're guilty, aren't we, of filling in the gaps a little bit with sporting directors, because like you say, we don't see them day to day.
You've almost got to win the PR war, haven't you, first and foremost?
Yeah, and I think back to Edwards, and I think people forget, don't they, that before Klopp came along, Edwards sat on the transfer committee, which at the time
everybody hated.
Everyone hated, and
they had the connotations
they were constantly
before Klopp
getting stick, weren't they? And even like the likes of Firmino, it was questioned until Klopp moulded him into a very good player. And I think, like you both said, I think it's too early to judge Richard Hughes. I think he's inherited a difficult situation with the 3 contracts, and who's to say any sporting director would have got them over the line so far? I think.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't have got the Trent one over
exactly.
Regardless of who it was.
So I think I feel sorry for him in that regard. But I do share Nathan's concerns over perhaps the future beyond this season, because I think, like you said, if Liverpool, worst case scenario, Liverpool lose all 3 of those players, then they're probably going to have the inevitable churn that you get with a new manager anyway, when, maybe he's made up his mind on Nunez and like you say, Elliot. So then you're looking at how many signings can they possibly make in one summer? What's the knock-on effect of that going into next season? Will they be left short in some areas? Well, that's almost inevitable if the amount of players turn over.
But then you could turn around and then they could say, well, we knew this was coming, which is why we didn't sign loads of players last summer or in January.
But then doesn't that work both ways? Because I'm
showing you that's what they might turn around and say.
They might, but the response to that for fans would be, well, this is a club who prides itself on careful transfers, planning ahead. Their long-term plans. Long-term planning as a concept only works when you don't get caught out. When And if next summer they get caught out by all of this, people will say, well, you should have seen this happening.
Well, the other thing as well is that they don't know what's going to happen with Salah, Van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold at the moment. So they whether or not they're thinking, well, we can't spend all that money on this because we might need it for that.
I accept that, but shouldn't at some point they be more proactive about, if they don't think they're going to do a deal with Salah, then they need to start thinking of replacements. The same for all of them.
And the fact that they're not looking for replacements at the moment suggests that they probably do think they can do a deal.
But even I even argue, though, Salah's 32, 33, same for Van Dijk. They obviously looked at Euro. They've got to have replacements in mind for them in the long term anyway, and if they eventually push them out the team, then so be it. But I think the next couple of windows will be very crucial, and it'll be interesting to see what they do. And
but when have the last couple of windows never been crucial? They're always crucial, aren't they?
I see what you mean, but they've not spent
the summer, was it?
Yeah.
Chiesa?
Yeah, but the only reason it's not
flattest.
crucial is because they've done well this season. If they hadn't done well, then you'd say, well, that was a crucial opportunity missed.
But they weren't going to. Whatever happened, they probably weren't going to lose a lot of players.
Yeah, and also don't forget, that there was loads of movements at Liverpool in the summer. It just wasn't on the pitch. They got a new manager, new sporting director, and a new
structure.
Yeah. Exactly.
But that's why it wasn't as crucial for them, and they were lucky in that regard. They didn't have to make a lot of transfers.
Well, therefore that did make it crucial because they did all the changes. You see what I mean?
You know what? I deal with two small children every day, and I'm trying to. This is like saying to Arthur, "What do you want
my
me to do?"
My point is, it was a crucial time for Liverpool in terms of transfers, but off the pitch, not necessarily on it.
There's that shout, isn't there? It's a bit philosophical, but what is it? Is it John Lennon who's credited with it? With life's what happens when you're busy making plans, and that's almost what's happened here, where Liverpool have, supporters are sort of planning ahead and thinking, well, what happens with Trent? What happens with Salah? What happens with Virgil? And all of a sudden, Liverpool are quietly leading the Premier League and the Champions League and are now embroiled in a very real challenge for the title, which not a lot of people thought was realistic in sort of mid-October. And, you can understand some apprehension from fans about what might happen in the future, but also what might happen this season is probably the one that we all really need to be concerned about, what we should be debating, and how did he go into this game trying to get maximum points, and there's a title here to be won, and whatever happens in the summer with players leaving, going, and there will be a turnover like there always is, but they could be doing that as Premier League champions.
You've got to understand the apprehension, and the one thing that's always stuck in my head, something Klopp said about the ownership group, I think just before he left, it was one of maybe the sit-downs that you guys did with him, and he said that he wished they took more chances. He never had any issues with him, but just took a few more chances, and I do think Liverpool are very good at planning, but not as good at just taking opportunities. And Chiesa was obviously an opportunity, and maybe they'll say that, but that's what happens when you take a chance on someone. But I think sometimes I'd like to see them roll the dice a little more in the transfer market. I'm not.
When was the last time, just talking generally about any football fans, that they weren't apprehensive?
or happy with the business done?
It's just generally speaking now.
You're always apprehensive about something, aren't you, as a football fan? But I can understand Liverpool fans and transfers. You've got to. Liverpool are one of the most careful clubs in the Premier League, and it's served them well. But I can understand there will always be that element of support who say, could they have done a bit better?
Could we have done more?
Yeah, well, I can think of seasons. I certainly look back at the season, and it sounds churlish to say it, but the season they went for 4 trophies and just missed out on the 2 big ones. I always remember they had a little bit of a tough Christmas period or tough winter period, and I remember at the time they were running low on midfielders, and at the time I thought, well, why don't they try and bring someone in midfield? And I think eventually they started selling midfielders that summer or the summer after, but it felt like if they were a bit more proactive.
They did buy Diaz, to be fair, and that helped them get it, and it did help them over the line.
I felt like they could have been more proactive, and I think that's how I feel now, is that sometimes I would like to see them just try a couple of things, and what's the worst that can happen? You have to move a player.
Yeah, I almost feel with Endo, it looks like the writing's on the wall for him. So if you're going to replace him in the summer, can you do it this month instead? Can you bring it forward? It's always that shout, isn't it? If you get a January transfer in when it's a player you want for the summer, can something be done there this month? I mean, we don't know. We're not really sure who's on any sort of shortlist at the moment, but
well, we know Zubimendi was on.
Yeah. Obviously, doesn't look like he's on it anymore, does it? I mean, midfield would be the one if you are looking to improve an area. Núñez isn't going anywhere. That Saudi Arabian link has been firmly dismissed. I think it's fair to say. They're okay up front, aren't they? With the 6 that they've got, albeit Chiesa's sort of in and out. Jota, we're going to come on to him, but I think for this month that they're okay there. Questions to be had in the summer over Núñez and maybe even Jota, but
let's stay there because I have got that listed as one of the topics to talk about. Jota centre forwards. Jota's injury today. Probably going to miss out on the Brentford game. I mean that area of the pitch.
You've said for a long time that they should sell him.
I think they should sell Jota, and I feel harsh saying that. I like Jota; he's a good player, but you can't rely on him. Is
there a difference between having him as your main striker or having him as your first backup?
Well, he is, isn't he? When everyone's fit, he started the season there. And
but the big one is Darwin Núñez. If Darwin Núñez had worked out, we wouldn't be so worried. But Darwin Núñez hasn't worked out.
It's not that he's terrible; it's just that he's not done what I think people thought he would. No, especially, it's this season's the one that's been the most disappointing because. First season that can happen. Second season, he actually had quite a lot of goals and got a fair few assists, but tailed off. He's tailed off in both seasons. Whereas you wonder this season whether or not, because he's not featured that much, could he end up being the one that kind of hits the ground a little bit in the second half of the season? You don't know. Because you don't know with him. That's the whole point. You just don't know what you're going to get.
Jota, so tomorrow is what? January the 18th. So if Jota doesn't start, he's going to go over 3 months since his last Premier League start. And that theoretically should be it's a third of the season for Darwin Núñez to get in the team, cement your place, score the goals and make sure that you are Liverpool's number 9, and he's not. We're still having questions about him and I don't think they'll ever go away. So when you've got that much of a opportunity to really cement your place with the manager and you still haven't done it, it's a big sort of red flag, isn't it? And I get that you can be a component of a fully firing frontline department, but individually it was there for him to go and grasp the nettle, and he hasn't done it. He's only scored 4 goals all season.
It's quite interesting that the team that's in second are Arsenal, and they reckon they're in an even worse state in terms of strikers.
That's true.
The team that's third is Forest, who don't score many goals, and you wonder what happened to them if Chris Wood gets injured. And you look at Man City, and I know Haaland's just signed a 47-year contract today, but he went to 11 or 12 Premier League games without scoring, wasn't it?
It wasn't that many.
Was it? I'm sure it felt like a lot. Maybe there's all competitions, but the point being, he had a big.
Feels like you've exaggerated two things there.
He had a big long gap where he didn't score, and City fell off. And the reason Newcastle have become quite good is because Isaac's started scoring a few goals. So I'm not entirely sure what points I'm trying to make there because I'm kind of just gone against myself. But basically, the point is that some teams quite clearly need a number 9 striker and some teams don't need it as much. And I think Liverpool, as was shown with Firmino, because he wasn't a main striker, he definitely wasn't that kind of thing. That the way that they're set up now, they probably don't. Because look, Diaz wasn't particularly great against Forest, but he's had games in the past where he's done quite well playing as that kind of false sign. I mean, I don't think he's the answer in terms of down the middle going forward. So I think Liverpool, that number 9 position is something they're going to have a look at, because on the slot they have to decide, right, this is exactly where we want to go. And again, that goes back to the point earlier on, is that he only has found this out this season, so they probably couldn't have signed a striker last summer anyway.
I don't really know what Slot would look for in a number 9. He's trialled Diaz there, who's very different to Núñez, who's very different to Jota. Jota probably combines all the skills that he closest wants to be his number 9, but like we just said then, we can't just get fit or stay fit. So yeah, I mean, I've said it for a number of months now. I do think Liverpool need to look at that number 9 position, and maybe it won't happen this month, but certainly in the summer it's one to look at and put it on the to-do list. But that list looks like it's getting longer and longer, doesn't it?
Yeah. Julian Baxendale says, would you rather a crucial chance later this season fall to Núñez or Jadon Dans? I know my answer. I mean, Jadon Dans is a very small sample size.
Yeah, it's a bit. I mean, I've seen a lot of him, but I know exactly what you're saying. He always seems to know where the goal is,
and he feels like he's got that.
Well, why went that chance falling to Núñez on Saturday against Accrington? Could have, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it kind of did in a way. In the first half, when they had the save and it came back to when he put it over.
Dan's created it, didn't he? And then he did really well to create it. And okay, he's up against League 2 opposition who was struggling in League 2, by the way, but he just looks like he knows where to go and the movements to make. And the 3 goals he scored for Liverpool have all been real poachers' goals, haven't he?
Good finish for the first one against Southampton.
He showed that, didn't he, an energy and a killer instinct that I just don't think we've seen certainly consistently from Nunes.
We've seen it consistently, but it was when he was playing for Benfica.
Yeah, but going back to centre forward position, I think the big giveaway with Slot is you look through the team, and he's a manager who knows what he wants, doesn't he? Alisson got fit, went straight back in.
Yeah.
His centre back partnership, you know who that is.
Yeah.
You know, Ibrahima Konate got fit, he went back in. His midfield partnership, okay, he moves that round a bit more, but Gravenberch, when fit, plays.
McAllister
when
player.
fit, plays. Szoboszlai, he can change around a little bit, but even there, I would argue that Szoboszlai has the edge. Centre forward, he's tried a load of different things, and I think that would give away that surely in the summer, you know, he talks about it, doesn't he, at length about Chiesa. The reason Chiesa doesn't get a chance is because Salah is fit and plays every game, so why would I? He doesn't change for changing's sake, and I think the fact that he changes his centre forward so often tells you what you need to know. And Jota might have been, but they just can't rely on him.
But I mean, as Ghosty said before, I mean, it's a miracle, isn't it, that they're 4 points clear at the top with a game in hand, with all these problems that they've got.
Well, someone was saying that today, funnily enough. You know, here we are with all these problems, top of the league.
But they are luxury problems, aren't they? You know,
the first world problems, aren't they?
Yeah.
Luxury problems, I like that.
I mean, you look
I'll use that at some point.
You know, there is another team that we cover, and you know, they're choosing between DCL, Beto, and Brozier.
DCL, come on, full name.
Well, it's a big mouthful, isn't it?
Dominic
Calvert-Lewin and Beto and Brozier, and Liverpool are choosing between Nunes, Jota and Diaz. So
but then it's who serves which team best. You know what I mean? It's that. Whatever that means.
I think it's certainly an area that they need to improve. DK says, "What's wrong with Ian Doyle? Why does he always act like this?" I have to deal with this every single day. Every day.
I do it for comedy value because otherwise this would be a very, very boring podcast, and I do insights every now and again.
It wouldn't be a boring.
It would be a boring podcast.
Razor sharp
Is it really?
insight.
Yeah.
Some serious nuanced debate.
Exactly. Yeah. But by the way, I was right about. I said it would be a draw against Forest, just like I said they'd be.
Have we got one right?
I've had everyone right.
He doesn't say it. All three people around the table predicted a draw against Nottingham Forest.
Yes. We all predicted a win against Accrington.
No, I think I said it'd be. I thought Liverpool would be Forest. I did.
Yeah.
Got that one wrong.
To be fair, they pinned them back, didn't they? And
Can we talk about the game? Yeah, can we please talk about the game? Yeah.
I mean,
about it.
I felt quite disappointed afterwards. I felt like it was 2 points dropped. I know they recovered from a losing position and then did well, but considering that they had Forest penned in their own half for the entire second half, plus I'd argue the goal they conceded was so poor in the sense that they'd started the first 6 or 7 minutes really well on the front foot, had Forest pinned back, created a few shots, not really huge chances, but Forest seemed to just play 3 simple balls and we're in. And I'm slightly concerned that some results like this aren't going there.
Yeah, well, Slot was making that point today that teams aren't necessarily having to work as hard as they are to score goals, and you can certainly understand that point really when you look at how easy it was for Wood just to sort of get in between the right back and the centre back and stick it away with his left foot. Brilliant finish, to be fair to him, but that was one of 3 shots on target for Nottingham Forest in the game. The last one was on 65 minutes from Hudson-Odoi, which was a free kick, easily saved by Alisson. The other one was in the first half. And Liverpool created enough huge opportunities to have won that game. You know, Jota has 2 more after his goal, doesn't he? Brilliant saves by Matt Sells. Salah has 1 off the line. Gakpo was unlucky. I thought Liverpool did do enough in the second half. First half was a worry again. I didn't think they were particularly at it. Dominated the ball, but never really looked like creating things. And Diaz as this false 9 didn't really work against Milankovic. And Murillo, we were content to sit in, defend in an old school way, traditional way, you know, sort of just knocking everything clear and getting in the way.
He was I mean, did you see at the time on commentary, they said, they've run into each other. Who was it? Was it Szoboszlai? He went and barged. He just ran into him, barged him down.
Yeah.
It was,
Diaz,
Diaz, sorry, yeah. He
takes no prisoners, Murillo.
Takes no prisoners, yeah.
Yeah, I loved that he had that shot from the halfway line. He was the only one in Liverpool's half. And then just apologises to Nuno as he runs away. Just say sorry for shooting from 60 yards.
To be fair, he was outstanding, but I did get the feeling from that. I would like to see him play for a bigger team that has to come out a bit more, because what he was doing, to say is basic is the wrong turn of phrase, but you know what I mean. He was just basically sitting in, doggedly defending.
Yeah, old school, isn't it?
Again,
traditional.
I think we mentioned this in the podcast last week, and I never bothered to check. Was it him last season who came out when Forest were 0-0 at Anfield. He came out with the ball, went into midfield, and then lost it. Was it him or was it the other Brazilian? It was definitely one of them two.
Is it Danilo?
I can't remember which one. I can't remember which one it
was.
was.
I do know the one you're on about. He gives it away, doesn't he? In the first score,
and then they go
1-0.
So that kind of I mean, there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, let's sign him right now," and it's like Liverpool do not play that way.
I don't think he looked that good on the ball. You know, it might have just been one of those nights for him, but certainly knows how to defend, and that's the way Forest are playing, counter-attacking team, and there's absolutely no issue with it, no problem with it at all, and it's got them incredible results so far this season. And I think Arsenal going there later in the season will be massive, really, because a team who love to defend and a team who can't really attack. So that'll be huge, whatever happens for Liverpool. But yeah, maybe it's 2 points dropped. A couple of days later, looking at it.
I don't think it's 2 points dropped. I think it's 1 point gained. If you go 1-0 down at the team who were at the end of this game the nearest challengers to you, and you end up getting a point and having enough chances, and the home team are reliant on the goalkeeper having a world-class performance and making loads of really good saves, then there's not much more you could do, if I'm being honest. I mean, obviously, you could have gone on and won the game, is what people will say now, but if that's the case, then you'd probably go off and win every game. That doesn't happen. This is one of Liverpool's hardest games that they'll play this season. You started, in terms of the first half, way off the best. The manager took a gamble in the second half by taking off Konate. He wasn't playing particularly well, and I think what Forest did quite well is to just let him have the ball rather than Van Dijk have the ball, and Liverpool weren't getting anywhere with it. And it paid off, but it paid off not just with, obviously, Tsimikas crossing for Jota straight away, but the mindset changed, and I thought Szoboszlai in the second half was really good. Not everybody agrees with me on that one, shall we say, but I thought he was right up in their faces, and it was that kind of physicality that Liverpool needed and put Forest on the back foot. And I saw some messages on social media where Forest fans were saying Liverpool were really, really good second half, and obviously hailing Forest's defensive result, but also saying Liverpool were really good because it got. When was the last time Forest had that many chances against them? Slot said this after the game, and don't forget that's a Forest team that is it 6 or 7 wins on the bounce in all competitions, and they hadn't conceded a goal for 500 odd minutes in the Premier League or something.
That many?
Yeah. So again, and they scored off a set piece, Liverpool, which doesn't happen too often. Well, at least you'd think, but you actually go back and look, they've probably done it quite a few times this season. But overall, I don't think it's a point dropped at all. I think 2 points dropped at all. I think it's a point gained. It's
that mug half full.
It's just, well, you might just say, oh, you're just being contrary because we both said it's 2 points dropped. But I said before the game, 1-1, and I said that would be a good point, and it turns out that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, look, I don't massively disagree. I just think the way the second half played out, it was frustrating that they didn't get a winner. I'm sure.
Well, it's different.
You could see the players at the end of the game were like,
well, yeah, but what does that tell you about the standards that they've got?
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah. That's good in a way.
Yeah. But I do think Liverpool will play harder games. You won't go away to Manchester City and dominate the ball and keep a team pinned back like that. You won't do that at Stamford Bridge.
But the atmosphere won't be as good as it was.
Maybe not.
There's not too many more difficult ones, though.
No. And Forest
Villa as well, to be
were
fair.
very, very impressive with the way that they defended. I mean, I can't really remember seeing a team defend just as stoutly. They kept
and yet the goalkeeper needed to make 3 or 4 really good saves.
Yeah. So it will be interesting. And I think tomorrow's game is going to be really, really interesting in terms of a test for Liverpool.
It's a really, really big day, actually. Arsenal hosting Aston Villa late in the day, isn't it? And
Arsenal win.
I don't know. Don't know.
Yeah,
I do. Watch Aston Villa play Everton.
Yeah, they weren't the greatest, really, Villa, against the poor Everton team. Let's talk a couple of other things before we turn our attentions to Brentford and transfers. Actually, just staying on Arsenal, are they still favourites?
100%.
100%
favourites. No, I'm not saying they're going to win it. I'm saying they're favourites. They just beat Tottenham in one of their harder games. They won. I know Tottenham are terrible, but when Liverpool play Everton, I think any neutral would say that Everton are a way worse team than Liverpool. But when they step out at Goodison, possibly less so at Anfield, that's not going to be an easy game.
No. I mean, no one's saying that the derby will be an easy game. Certainly now they've got Moyes in who might tweak 1 or 2 things by then. But yeah, I mean, how can you not say Liverpool are favourites with a 4-point advantage in a game in hand?
Easy. I just did.
Every week. We have to put up with this. League travels around the country.
They don't have to put up with it every week. They don't have to ask me on. I'm quite happy not to be on it.
No, he's not. Right, let's turn our attentions. Let's talk the 47-year contract that Haaland's got. Does it put, Gorsty, any pressure on Liverpool to sort of get their own contract done? I suppose it's an easy thing to say.
It could do, or rather maybe it should do, but I don't think it will. I think Liverpool will shrug and say it's nothing to do with us. But it is interesting. I mean, obviously we don't keep up with City as much as we do with Liverpool, but I didn't see any murmurings about that. Set two or anything like that. It was just Friday morning, done and dusted, signed, 9.5-year deal, and they've got him tied down for the rest of his career, pretty much. It's in such contrast to the noise that has just swirled around Liverpool for all season, really, with Van Dijk, Salah, and Alexander-Arnold. Now, City might feel that they've got the finances to go and do that with minimum fuss and just get it done and say name your price and we'll sign you up. Liverpool, like we say, uber cautious and all that sort of stuff, and the wage bill's already there, sort of very high anyway. Maybe there is a different way of negotiating this sort of stuff, but when you just see it in black and white and this sort of no nonsense approach that City have done with it, it does bring Liverpool's struggles to get all three tied down into focus, doesn't it?
Do we not think it might have something to do with the fact that players might not be considering moving to City because of this whole charges thing that's over their head?
Not necessarily, because they're about to sign 3 players, aren't they?
Well, they are, but they haven't signed them yet. Right. And they might be on an hour over it. And then if they turn around and go, well, look at this, our best player has just signed a 9.5-year contract, so things can't be that bad. And I would not be surprised if there's like a relegation release clause in there or something like that. If there's something in there that just allows him to not walk out, but they could break the contract, as it were. They're not soft. There'll be something like that because City are quite hot with their PR, as we've seen throughout this whole charges thing.
I do wonder whether there's some murmurings in the Premier League are going to not give City a points deduction or anything like that. It will just be a fine.
What's the point in that?
Which just seems completely...
It's like giving me a comb? Absolutely pointless.
It just seems completely crazy, doesn't it? I mean, what's the point in bringing charges against them if you're going to end up...
Might as well just break the rules, break every
exactly.
rule and pay the fine.
Well, this is the thing. You can just do whatever you want then.
Yeah.
But I've seen a few people suggest that this means that City might feel confident that they're going to be exonerated and no charges are held up. But I sort of take the opposite view of maybe they know what's coming down the road and they're trying to get a few ducks in the road because they're going quite aggressive this month. I don't necessarily just think it's on the back of a poor half of the season either. I think they're planning for the rest of Guardiola's time at the club, bringing in Omar Mamouche and a couple of others, aren't they, who don't know too much about, really. But if City are going for them, we'd expect them to be top players in the making. They've got the best striker tied down now for the rest of his career. So are they sort of planning for a couple of years where they might have a transfer ban or, whatever it may be? I think that is just as relevant a theory as it is that they feel that they're going to be exonerated and they can move on.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we're seeing a climb down from the Premier League over PSR. No clubs charged this time around. They've obviously
it's different. It's different.
News breaking that they've discontinued proceedings against Everton. And look, I mean, it just feels like I think the Premier League have started a fight. They know they can't win, and setting the table to say, you know what, we'll back off City.
Well, the thing is, if they back off City, I think you'll find there'll be certain people will just walk away from certain clubs, I think, and go, what's the point?
Yeah. I think
and then the competitive nature of the league will dwindle and there'll be less interest, and ultimately it will then become no one cares.
The Premier League could really do with, I mean, they're going to get it, but they could really do with the winning not being Manchester City this year, couldn't they? Just to sort of argue that the competitive balance has been redressed. And
as long as it wasn't Arsenal as well, or Forest or Newcastle, as long as it on any of those teams.
A quick apology to Ben Gary, who did ask a couple of questions. I did say I would ask them. I just
go through them now,
quickly. We touched upon it earlier. The recent trend of starting games slowly, drawing games. Do you think there's anything behind it? And are you worried by it?
I'd love to know what the slow starts are, because it's been a thing that went away for a little bit at the beginning of the season, but it's been an issue that's plagued Liverpool for 3 years now. Going back to sort of back end of 21-22, when they were going for all 4 trophies, weren't they? And a lot of those games required a lot of energy to sort of fight back, and that's never really gone away since, really, for certainly a prolonged period. So I don't know how you counteract that. I'm sure Jurgen Klopp was at his wit's end trying to solve it at one point last season, but certainly seems to be creeping in lately, doesn't it?
Ben's other question is, what is the best Premier League away trip?
In terms of what?
He's just asked
I love
generally.
going to Fulham.
Yeah, Fulham. Tottenham, because the
food's good.
stadium's unbelievable, and I was saying to you and James Pearce a few weeks ago when we went for the 6-3, give me all the NFL franchise bowls you like, because they're great.
Yeah.
None of this, let's go to Goodison and it's got history and heritage and all that, because I can't see the pitch. My knees are killing me, back's hurting. Give me loads of room and a nice plush sheet.
Yeah, Fulham, because it's quite nice, and the walk up from the underground through the park by the Thames is nice. I'd imagine it wouldn't be very good. It's raining, but I've not had. In fact, I don't think it's ever rained.
It's never rained at Fulham.
It's only rained
never
once.
rained at
It's only
Fulham,
rained
yeah.
once at Fulham, and that was in the COVID season where there's about 2,000 people there. That was it.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Ben, and thanks for your support as always. A couple more quick fire questions that have come through here. Would you rather Liverpool sign a left back and midfielder this window or renew contracts?
New contracts, yeah.
New contracts.
Yeah.
Clean sweep there. Few FSG houses.
Is that a question or a statement?
No, not FSG out, but FSG. Yeah, okay. Spend some money. I can understand people's frustrations. We've already been through what is wrong with Ian Doyle. We couldn't answer that one.
That would be a very long podcast.
Sorry, one more from Julian Baxter. Do you think FSG want us to win the league, or
No.
they don't?
No, they definitely don't want it. They're in the business to
serious
not
question.
win.
It's a serious question. I think what he means.
They want to
is,
make some
does
money,
it-
so you
but-
make
but I-
more
but I
money by
think-
winning the league.
I think what he's implying is that does it really matter to them whether they win the league or
Yes.
just qualify for the Champions League? I think it does. The optics look better.
100%.
I'll say it again, yeah.
Look better, don't they? If Liverpool win the league, it looks like they are a sports group that has its stuff together.
The size of the Premier League can't be overlooked in America. If they're in charge of the winners of that competition, it's huge. I remember speaking to Tom Werner when they won the league. The club sort of put him up as like he's going to say loads of nice things about everyone because Liverpool are champions of the Premier League, and he was genuinely just so made up to be talking about his team who've won the league. And we can argue all day about the business model and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of it is valid and some of it is over the top. But in terms of how much they want to win the league, they'd be absolutely over the moon.
They're just not a group that's going to just break their business model to push it over
Yeah.
the line, and I understand why that frustrates people, but that's just the way they operate. Because I think they would argue if we do that one time, you just do that every single time. Do you do that when they need to get into fourth place? Do you do that when they need to get into second place?
I think at the end of the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, when they were crying out for centre backs, they were on the knees with no centre backs, and they brought in Ozan Kabak and Ben Davies. Didn't address it properly at all. I think ever since that, I think all bets have been off that they're going to suddenly have a change of heart and just think, well, if we do this and we do that, then I just don't think it's the way they work. And we can have debates about that if it's fair and balanced and nuanced. But a lot of this FSG out stuff isn't. It's not.
But
right.
But Paul, you never ask any questions, do you, of the owners? You never ask any questions. You never criticise them. Why don't you criticise them more often?
It's funny when people say this, because the back end of trying to get my seasons right now, not last season, season before, was pretty much just me writing in my weekly column, "Oh, big summer for FSG. You need to pull the finger out this summer," and they go and spend 150-60 million on a new midfield, and looks like they're in good stead now. But when people say the Echo doesn't question the owners, they absolutely do, and they have to.
They're not saying the Echo doesn't question the owners. They're saying you don't say FSG out, and therefore.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, my experience with FSG personally is like I look at the way the club was before they came in. I just think of a match-going experience, and all right, they've not got everything right on ticket prices, but certainly in terms of when you travel to Anfield, if you go often enough, you know that it is improved tenfold, 20-fold.
But the reality
100-fold.
is partly because of geography, partly because of the price of tickets, partly because of the fact that they can't be bothered. Some fans are never going to be able to go to the game, and they don't see that. They only see what they see on television, and that is a large part. That is the majority of your fan base. That's what it's like for any big club. The majority of the fans who are also the more likely to pay for the merchandise and stuff like that, they don't see that experience. But what you would argue on that is that what they do see and kind of feel is the atmosphere inside the stadium. And if any changes made by any owners at any clubs to improve the atmosphere, which is what's happened with more fans going in the stadium, that's going to help. And also, talking about the infrastructure of your training ground, if you've got a really nice training ground, that is where the players spend most of their time if they've signed for your club. So if you've got a really nice training ground with nice facilities, it can sometimes make it easier to sign players.
Look at Liverpool's status over the last 10 years. You know, it's grown massively, hasn't it? They've gone from being a side that, all right, they've had seasons outside the Champions League within that time, but they've gone from a team that, can they get in the top four? Almost, not quite like this, but in the Premier League era, a sort of, and also ran a team that challenges 1 year and then dropped out the Champions League completely, then challenges another year, drops out completely, has a few years. I think now you look at the way they've raised the profile of the club, they deserve credit for that. And yeah, could they spend more? Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that these owners that people think they should be, they don't exist in many places.
One thing that's going to be very interesting, I'll just play devil's advocate for a second, which is unlike me, is obviously the people who are detractors to FSG say that they wouldn't have won anything if it wasn't for Klopp and his management. What if Slot wins the league this season? Suddenly that's 2 managers who've won it. I mean, does that mean that the model is actually a bit better than they think? Or have they just been lucky in that they've been able to recruit 2 managers because they obviously are the ones that also recruited them? And it's a lot easier to recruit Klopp in terms of knowing that he's a big name. Obviously it's hard to get him in, but with Slot it was obviously slightly different because a lot of people had never heard of him.
Yeah.
And it's the squad as well, isn't it? The group of players who say, let's say between 2018 to what now, probably the best squad that I've ever seen at Liverpool. I'm similar age, aren't you? I'm sure you'd agree. That is not
Younger.
down to, that's true, yes, 6 months, 8 months. That is down to the people who the owners have employed to make these decisions. It's not John Henry's thinking, oh, he's a good player, let's get him in. It's them entrusting the people with the expertise to go and do the job.
Who they appointed.
Someone, Julian said John Henry doesn't go to bed tonight worrying about Brentford away, will he? But will the owners of Newcastle, will the owners of Man City, will the owners of many clubs? Yeah, like David Moores did. But football's moved on a great deal since then. And
Bill
to
Kenwright
me,
definitely would have done.
there's a couple of, someone said Musk or Saudi conglomerate to take over Liverpool. What's worse? And that to me is far worse. I wouldn't want someone like Elon Musk anywhere near Liverpool. He could bring all the money in the world, but it wouldn't make a difference, would it? I think people want FSG to spend a bit more, and yeah, I'd like them to, but I wouldn't want them to replace those owners because I think you roll the dice and you see the other side of it.
So Joe Rimmett is FSG in.
Certainly FSG in. FSG can do more. FSG can be criticised, yeah, but I'm certainly FSG in because I think the club has improved dramatically. I'm proud to take friends to Anfield.
And is it mature and grown up to be able to accept that there are people who have differing views to you, and everybody can get along, and we can
everyone can get along.
Exactly, yeah. As long as we ask the questions and we're very critical.
Let's finish off by. Sorry, I did miss a question from Sandra Mistreet, so dead quickly we'll address this one.
Been a while since Mr. Mystery. Yeah.
I didn't want to miss it. I didn't make a note of it. Has any team played really well against a low block? Sorry, the question's just disappeared off my page. Basically, how do you get past it? Why do we struggle against it? And is it just a case of making lots and lots of chances? And I think probably
it's impossible to
movements.
answer.
It's certain angles. Like Szoboszlai was making that run time and again on Tuesday night, which is like Salah's got it wide and he sort of makes a bit of an underlapping run into those areas and got in behind once or twice. Didn't quite come off, but shooting from range as well is a thing, isn't it? Liverpool don't do it too often. Harvey Elliott likes to. Szoboszlai's got it in his locker, but there's not too many others who can have a pop from
first half. They were having shots from miles out and they were going nowhere.
Yeah.
That might explain it.
I don't think they do want to shoot from range as much. I think they want to get the ball, like what they did in
it's
the
a low
second
XG,
half.
isn't it?
Yeah, you get it into areas where with a higher XG and just get as many shots away as possible. And they were unlucky, weren't they, the other night? The one didn't go.
I think a low block, one of the ways is to do what they did in the second half, which is basically just tire them out. Tire them out. Just keep going. Because the defenders, you've got to concentrate so much more if you're defending compared to when you're attacking. And Forest ended up getting a bit tired towards the end.
Yeah. Let's before we do it, Brentford away, very difficult game.
Both agreed. It will be.
Best home record in the Premier League, yeah. Only Forest and Arsenal have beaten them, but it shows you that the top teams can beat them.
Yeah, and I think they do play a style that they don't sit and defend like Forest do. They I think Slot said they play a very mixed style, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Very direct, but direct's got sort of negative connotations at times when you talk about football. But
they play direct in a good way, don't they?
Yeah. Brian and Wermo's obviously a really good player for them. Johan Wissa, those two, mentioned it before, didn't I? Brian and Wermo scored the most goals in home Premier League games, and Wissa is number 3 on that list. I think Salah might be number 2. So both of those will be playing tomorrow, and it will be tough. But on the flip side, Forest scored 3, and Arsenal did as well. So big game, but if Liverpool want to win the league, they've got to go to these places and win.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Brentford?
Nice stadium, small, and you can expect goals, but it's been 3-3, 3-1 and 4-1 in the 3 times Liverpool have played this, so I'd be amazed if it was 0-0.
Yeah, I same. I like Brentford. I think they're probably the most likeable club in the Premier League.
You don't want to be that, though, do you? You don't want to be that.
No, in a good way, in terms of like they have a positive attitude, they play positive football, they win games, they're a challenge, they're tough to go through, they've got a really good and interesting manager that I think is quite likeable.
Who's the most German Dane of all time.
That approaches the game in the right way. I just think there's a lot to like about them, and I think it'll be a tough tomorrow.
And their nickname is the Bees.
Yeah.
And we all like the Bees, don't we?
Right, so let's pick our teams. Paul, we'll start with you. Alisson in goal.
Yeah, Simicast for Robertson.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's as you were against Forest.
Yeah.
Yep.
All agreed on that. Midfield.
I will go
on.
Graham Burke, as Spotify tells us his name is. McAllister and Bosley.
Yeah, I could make a case for Jones if maybe the game was a bit closer, but Tuesday to Saturday feels okay. So Boz likes to go again. Maybe a little shout of Harvey Elliott off the bench as well.
Same, yeah. I think physicality is order of the day as well at Brentford, and Szoboszlai does that very, very well. Finish off with your front 3.
Well, Jota's the one, isn't he? You know, Slot was a bit non-committal either way. Said he's going to give him a check over today, but if he doesn't, I think I'm going to go with Nunes over Diaz.
Scored a good dink there.
We've all picked the same team, haven't we, basically? Yeah.
So your front 3 is Nunes. And
it'll be with Gakpo on the left and Salah on the right.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine too. I think I feel like their style might suit Nunes a little bit.
Yeah.
He might have spaces to run into.
Yeah.
Give us a score prediction.
Liverpool win 3-1 or 3-2.
That's positive.
Yeah.
That cup must be half full today.
2-0 Liverpool.
Yeah.
Nil. That's a big shout.
Yeah, I don't see a nil. I think a 3-1 as well. So yeah.
I just said that just to be different, really, because we've all been
What do you really
very
think?
shamey.
What do you actually think?
3-2 is not a bad shout, you know.
I think it's one of these ones where it is, if they can build on what they did against Forest at the end and take that into the game rather than what happened in the first half. And I mean, in the first half, I mean after Forest scored, because as we said before, they actually started all right. Because I think Brentford will want to attack a bit more. A lot's going to be on Konate and Van Dijk, I reckon. A lot's going to be on them too. And I think Simicast's deliveries, if he plays, which he should do, again, they could make a big difference.
Yeah, agreed. Great. Well, that was a good pod. Thank you all for listening. Again, like, subscribe, drop a comment, tell a friend.
Press the bell.
I might regret this after talking about FSG on this podcast, but if you want to send an email, give us feedback, ask a question, joe.rimmer@reachplc.com.
And paul.gorst at reachplc.com.
You can work out how this works, so if you'd like to email Ian as well,
Please don't.
it's the same format. And we will answer your questions here on Monday when we'll be back to talk about Brentford and to look forward to Lille. The small matter of Lille.
Get out.
We'll see you then. Goodbye.